Welcome to the Smart Move with SafeShift, where practical advice helps you plan smarter and move better. Now let's get moving.
Picture this. You've just orchestrated this massive family move across state lines to a really beautiful Pacific Northwest suburb.
Right.
You kept your high-paying tech salary, your new house has a massive yard, and honestly, you feel like an absolute real estate genius.
Oh, yeah, I know where this is going.
Yeah, until the second Tuesday of October hits. It is just pouring rain. Your kids are inexplicably stuck on a 2-year wait list for the only decent after-school care program within 10 miles. And your evening commute across this gridlocked bridge has just entirely broken your spirit.
It is the classic relocation nightmare. I mean, we see families do this all the time.
Yeah, for sure.
They move for like a feeling, right? An aesthetic or this glossy idea of what a new state is going to be like. And they just completely ignore the underlying mechanical reality of what it actually takes to live there day in and day out.
Which is exactly what we are dismantling today. So if you are listening to this right now and you're even remotely considering packing up your life and moving your kids across state lines, we are ripping up those glossy brochures.
Yeah, we have to.
Today's mission is all about extracting the most practical, battle-tested tips for moving families. We're looking at some really brilliant logistical data compiled by Safe Ship Moving, comparing Oregon and Washington.
It's a great data set.
It is. But here's the thing. While this guide is ostensibly framed around this Pacific Northwest rivalry, it's actually a masterclass in how you should be evaluating a relocation to literally anywhere in the country.
It strips away all the emotion, which is so necessary. Because, when you're single or maybe a young couple with no kids, you can afford to just wing it.
Right.
You can move for the evergreens or the coffee scene or a cool downtown vibe, but the moment you add children to the equation, you're no longer just moving yourself.
You're moving a whole operation.
Exactly. You are transporting a highly complex, incredibly fragile logistical ecosystem. And if you don't aggressively adjust your formula for how you pick a destination, you are just in for a very rough landing.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before you can even think about ordering a single cardboard box, you have to establish the financial foundation. You have to figure out if your specific family can actually afford the destination you were dreaming about.
That's step one.
And looking at the source data, there is this fundamental rule that jumps out immediately. You have to pick a metro, not a mascot.
Oh, I love that. That is the perfect way to phrase it because statewide averages are frankly massive statistical illusions.
Right.
If you were staring at a mortgage pre-approval right now and asking a search engine, hey, is Washington cheaper than Oregon? You are actively sabotaging your own budget.
Because it doesn't mean anything.
The statewide average means absolutely nothing to your daily life.
It's like trying to buy a car based solely on the brand name, without ever actually checking the specific model's gas mileage. Like, if you look at the raw state-level data, Washington's housing and everyday costs look astronomically high compared to Oregon.
Right, but you have to ask why those numbers look that way. Washington's statewide average is being pulled violently upward by the immense wealth concentrated in Seattle, Bellevue, and Redmond.
The tech money.
Exactly. It does not accurately represent what it costs to buy, say, a 4-bedroom house in a city like Spokane on the eastern side of the mountains.
And the illusion totally works both ways. Oregon often looks like the cheaper option on a macro level, but try telling that to a family trying to buy a house in Bend, Oregon right now.
Oh, impossible.
The post-pandemic remote work demand there has completely outrun the housing supply. The prices are just staggering. Or even Inner Portland, which can still absolutely sting a middle-class budget. You just cannot make a financial decision based on lines drawn on a map.
You have to compare the specific zip codes you actually intend to sleep in. Which brings us to, honestly, the biggest financial shock for families moving across state lines.
The taxes.
The tax structure. What is fascinating here is how these two neighboring states operate as perfect financial inverses of one another.
It really is wild to look at.
It is a brilliant case study in how taxes silently dictate your lifestyle.
Let's break down the mechanics of this because I think a lot of people misunderstand how this actually hits their bank account. Let's talk about the leaky bucket metaphor.
Oh, this is a great way to visualize it.
Right. So in Washington state, there is absolutely zero state tax on your wage income. You earn $1, you keep $1. They put a solid lid on the top of your bucket.
Right.
But they drill holes in the bottom every single time you swipe your credit card.
Precisely. Washington makes up for that lack of income tax with a really heavy sales tax.
Yeah.
You have a 6.5% base rate at the state level, but once you stack local municipality taxes on top of that, you are routinely paying between 8 and 10.5% on almost every physical good you purchase.
It adds up so fast.
Yeah.
But then you cross the Columbia River into Oregon, and the bucket flips entirely. Oregon has 0 statewide sales tax. None.
Which is wild to experience.
Right. If the price tag says $20, you hand over a crisp $20 bill and walk out. But there are bucket leaks at the top. They have a graduated state income tax that can climb near 9.9% for higher earners.
Now, most people hear those two tax slogans and jump to immediate conclusions.
Well, yeah, let me push back on that right now, because looking at those numbers, if Washington has no income tax, isn't it mathematically always superior for a dual-income tech family?
You'd think so, yeah.
Like if my household is pulling in over $200,000 a year, shielding that entire salary from a state government feels like the ultimate no-brainer. Why would I ever choose Oregon?
It seems obvious on the surface, but the math changes entirely based on how your family actually behaves.
What do you mean?
Well, if you are that high-earning tech household and you spend your money very modestly, like maybe you invest heavily, you keep your old cars, you don't buy a lot of consumer goods,
Okay, sure.
then yes, Washington's lack of an income tax is an incredible financial shield for you. You definitively win that math equation.
But what if I'm not bringing home tech executive money? What if I am a mid-income family of 5?
Then the trap springs shut. Imagine a household making a median income. You are outfitting 2 kids for a new school year. You have to buy a minivan because the family is growing. You're buying furniture for a new house.
With normal family stuff.
Right. And you are filling up 2 massive shopping carts at the grocery store every single Sunday. A 10% sales tax on all of that consumption is going to drain your bank account incredibly fast.
Ouch.
For a high-consumption, mid-income family, Washington can feel suffocating, whereas Oregon's missing sales tax feels like a massive daily pay raise, even with the hit to their paychecks.
Wow. So if you are listening to this, you are probably mentally auditing your own credit card statements right now. You really have to ask yourself, does your family leak money through income, or do you leak money through consumption? Because that dictates which side of the state line you actually belong on.
Exactly. And we cannot ignore property taxes either, because the mechanical differences there can quietly force a family out of their own home over a 10-year period.
Yes. Let's explain how this actually works, because this is where the data gets incredibly technical, but it is just so vital.
Yeah.
In Oregon, the system is designed to decouple your tax bill from the wild swings of the real estate market. They cap the assessed value of your home.
This is a crucial mechanism. The state fundamentally limits how much the taxable value of your property can increase year over year.
So even if the market goes crazy, you're safe.
Exactly. If a tech boom happens and the actual market price of your Portland home doubles in 5 years, your property tax bill does not double. It just inches up slowly, predictably, based on that cap. It protects families from being taxed out of gentrifying neighborhoods.
Meanwhile, in Washington, the mechanism tracks hot market values much more aggressively. So if you buy a house in a sleepy Seattle suburb, and suddenly 3 major corporations build campuses nearby, your property value skyrockets.
Yeah.
But your tax bill is going on that exact same rocket ride. It is a completely different level of long-term financial exposure.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, your job industry is ultimately what triggers this entire cascade.
How so?
Well, the Puget Sound area in Washington is heavily concentrated with high-paying tech, aerospace, and corporate roles. But the Portland Metro is this massive employment engine for healthcare, education, manufacturing, and professional services.
Oh, I see.
So a Seattle tech job makes Washington better on paper. But if you desire a slower pace, less pressure, and a massive yard, moving your family down to Salem or Eugene in Oregon changes your tax profile, your housing costs, and your lifestyle completely.
So you run the numbers. You figure out if your family is a Washington family or an Oregon family on a spreadsheet. You find a town that fits the budget. But here is where we pivot from macroeconomics to the brutal reality of daily life.
The fun part.
Because a spreadsheet cannot drive your kids to soccer practice.
No, it cannot.
And this brings us to a phenomenal concept in the data that I think every moving family falls for at least once. It's called the farmer's market trap.
It is the single most dangerous psychological trap of relocating.
Let me set the scene for you. You fly into a new city for a weekend scouting trip. It's a sunny Saturday morning. You stroll into a beautiful suburban neighborhood. You walk through a vibrant farmer's market. You buy an artisanal pastry. You listen to a guy playing a acoustic guitar.
The perfect day.
Right. And you look at your partner and say, this is it. The vibe is immaculate. We could build a life here.
And that Saturday morning is lying right to your face.
It is a complete fabrication because you aren't buying a vacation. When you move a family, you are buying a Tuesday.
Exactly. The reality of family life does not happen on a leisurely weekend morning. It happens on a frantic Tuesday afternoon in November in the pouring rain when one kid is sick and the other needs to be picked up from trumpet practice.
Yeah, that's the real test.
You are fundamentally buying a logistical system. And the core engine of that logistical system is the hyperlocal school district.
I really want to focus on that word, hyperlocal. The data shows that you absolutely cannot rely on statewide educational rankings. They are meaningless to your specific child.
Totally meaningless.
In both the Portland and Seattle metros, you can find a world-class, highly funded public school district in one suburb and then cross a single street into a neighboring district where the resources just drop off a cliff.
This is why you must evaluate the district in person while the machine is actually running. A weekend open house with balloons and cookies tells you absolutely nothing.
So what should parents do?
You need to shortlist 2 or 3 districts, and you must walk the halls of those schools on a random Wednesday morning.
And what are we actually looking for when we do that? Because I think a lot of parents just look at the new playground equipment and call it good.
You need to ask the administration highly specific mechanical questions. What are your actual class size caps, not just your averages? How are your bus routes structured for this specific neighborhood? What is your capacity for individualized education programs, or IEPs?
That's super important.
And perhaps the most critical question for dual-income households, what is the waitlist reality for your before and after school care programs?
The childcare waitlist math is terrifying. This is where a great budget can just instantly evaporate.
Oh, in a second.
The data shows that while childcare costs generally run lower in Oregon compared to the Seattle metro average, a waitlist in Portland can still completely eat a second income. If you buy a house in a great neighborhood, but the local after-school program has a 2-year waitlist, one parent might literally have to quit their job just to manage the logistics of a Tuesday at 3 p.m.
You have to budget for the actual center your child will attend and verify their enrollment capacity before you ever put an offer in on a house. Because a beautiful home is a prison if the daily logistics trap you inside it.
Which brings us to the commute. The guidance here is brilliant. Never map your new commute against a picturesque downtown skyline photo or some Sunday afternoon test drive. You have to map it specifically against your after-school pickup window.
And you must factor in the realities of winter infrastructure, especially if you are relocating from a Sunbelt state. The Pacific Northwest has very specific microclimates.
Right, the rain.
A 15-minute drive in July can easily become a 45-minute crawl in January when the rain hits and the roads just bottleneck.
That daily friction is exactly why we see this massive suburban migration in the data. You have dual-income households tied to Seattle tech jobs, but they intentionally choose to take on a much longer commute from a place like Tacoma, Washington.
Yeah, just to get some space.
Exactly, just to get financial breathing room and a quieter daily drop-off routine. Or families working in downtown Portland who intentionally target suburbs like Beaverton, Hillsborough, or Tigard.
Yep, the Oregon suburbs.
They are trading a bit of their commute time for more square footage, stronger suburban school districts, and avoidance of some of the localized property crime and street issues that can complicate daily life in the urban cores.
They are prioritizing the mechanics of a Tuesday over the aesthetics of a Saturday.
Okay, so let's say a family does everything right. They crack the tax math, they avoid the farmer's market trap, they verify the school wait lists, and they find the perfect house. Now we have to actually execute the fiscal move.
This is where it gets real.
And this is where things get really fascinating.
Yeah.
Because there is this specific maneuver some families attempt that seems like the ultimate life hack. It's called the border play.
Ah, yes. The border play. It is the ultimate temptation for families moving to this specific region.
On paper, it sounds like genius. Because Washington and Oregon share the Columbia River as a border, families will try to buy a house in Vancouver, Washington, which is just across the river from Portland. By sleeping in Washington, they avoid state income taxes on their wages. But whenever they need to buy a major appliance, a car, or just do their heavy weekly grocery shopping, they drive 10 minutes across the bridge into Portland, Oregon, to avoid the sales tax.
It is the holy grail of tax avoidance. You keep 100% of your paycheck and you pay 0% on your consumption.
let me argue for this for a second. If I'm making $150,000 a year, dodging a near 10% income tax and a 10% sales tax could literally keep tens of thousands of dollars in my pocket every single year.
That's real money, yeah.
Why shouldn't every single family moving to the region do this? It sounds incredibly smart.
It sounds smart until you try to actually execute it. The source data issues a massive warning here for a reason.
Uh-oh.
Establishing residency, managing dual state payroll, and filing taxes across state lines is not DIY internet trivia. It is a highly scrutinized legal reality.
Wait, really?
Oh, absolutely. State revenue departments are very aware of this exact maneuver, and they are incredibly aggressive about auditing it.
So they will actually track to see if you are faking it.
Yes. If you attempt to claim Washington residency but spend the majority of your time working or living in Oregon, auditors will pull your cell phone tower pings.
Cell phone pings, wow.
They will look at your toll bridge transponder logs. They will check where your kids are enrolled in school, where your cars are registered, and where your daily debit card swipes actually occur. If you cross that river to work in Portland, Oregon is still going to tax that income regardless of where you sleep.
Wow. So you can't just run a mailbox in Washington and call it a day.
No, definitely not. You must consult a specialized tax professional before you uproot your family to chase a loophole. It has to be treated as a rigid, legally binding logistical plan, not just a casual weekend life hack.
Which raises an incredible framework that the data provides. There is a definitive hierarchy, a strict order of operations that families must filter their decisions through to avoid ruining their lives chasing these loopholes.
This raises an important question, right? What actually matters when the boxes are unpacked?
The data.
The filter is very strict. Number 1, job location and commute stability. That is the bedrock. Number 2, the specific verified public school district. Number 3, the monthly housing costs you can reliably afford. And coming in dead last at number 4, the tax structure.
Taxes are last, even after all that math we just did.
They have to be. Because if you invert that list, if you compromise your daily commute or put your kids in a struggling school or buy a house you can barely afford just to optimize your tax bracket, that tax savings will never compensate for the sheer misery of your daily life.
That makes a lot of sense.
A pretty house and a slightly larger tax refund will not save your year if you are exhausted from crossing a bridge in gridlock traffic every day for a decade.
Job, school, housing, taxes.
Yeah.
In that exact order. Write that down if you are planning a move. And once you lock that in, the physical execution of the relocation has to be treated like a highly coordinated military operation.
It really does.
The data suggests managing the timeline incredibly aggressively. Don't wait until June to find a mover. Book your carriers months before the summer peak hits.
And you have to orchestrate the transition dates flawlessly. You must align the end of your current lease or home sale, the closing date of the new property, and the first day of your children's school year.
The timing is everything.
Because the fastest way to traumatize a family during a move is to have your kids living out of suitcases in a short-term rental during their first week at a new school.
And there are some fantastic, highly specific physical packing tips here too. If you are moving to the Pacific Northwest, you are moving to the rain.
It's going to be wet.
The Safe Ship Moving Guide explicitly says to ditch the cardboard for anything going into a garage or basement. Use hard plastic totes. Instruct your movers to double wrap your wooden furniture. And create a strict, non-negotiable plan to unpack every single bed and the entire kitchen within the first 48 hours of arrival.
Because a hot meal and a proper bed provide the psychological stability your kids desperately need during that first chaotic week, which is exactly why the guide places so much emphasis on who is actually driving the truck.
Yes, let's talk about the movers themselves because this blew my mind. The source specifically points out that Safe Ship Moving Services is a licensed interstate moving broker, and they highlight their US DOT number, which is 3475743.
Right.
At first glance, that just looks like a random string of corporate numbers, but there is a massive structural reason why that matters for a state-to-state move.
It is the difference between a successful move and your belongings being stranded on a highway.
Really?
Yeah, because when you hire a local moving company, they operate under state-level licensing. They have authority to move you from Seattle to Spokane, for example.
Really?
But the second that truck attempts to cross a state line into Oregon, they fall under the jurisdiction of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration.
So a local guy legally might not even be allowed to cross the bridge.
Exactly. They often lack the federal authority, the specific interstate insurance policies, and the way station clearances required to execute the route. That US DOT number proves that a broker like SafeShip is matching your inventory exclusively with federally insured carriers who are legally authorized to cross those borders.
You do not want a local crew getting to the state line looking at you and saying, well, our insurance stops here. Good luck unloading.
No, that's a nightmare.
Paying for professional, federally vetted packing and hauling means you aren't spending your first week fighting with packing tape and bubble wrap. It frees you up as a parent to focus on the human logistics, filling out the school enrollment packets, finding the new pediatrician, and actually walking your kids to their new bus stop.
It allows you to protect the ecosystem we talked about at the very beginning.
So to pull all of this together, a successful family relocation has absolutely nothing to do with falling in love with a state's scenery or getting swept away by the charm of a weekend farmer's market. It is entirely about matching the specific mechanical realities of your household to the specific logistical realities of a new city.
Exactly.
It is about understanding the leaky bucket of your tax footprint, verifying the school wait lists in person, mapping the Tuesday afternoon commute, and hiring the right federal professionals to carry the load.
It is about engineering a life that functions smoothly on your absolute worst, rainiest days, rather than just romanticizing your best ones. And honestly, looking at all of this data, it brings me back to that border play concept we debated earlier. And it leaves me with something quite profound to consider about the psychology of moving.
Oh, where does your head go with that?
Well, think about the ultimate cost of that tax optimization. If a family successfully orchestrates their entire daily existence around a geographical border purely to game the tax system, say they deliberately sleep in Washington to shield their income, but they commute, they shop, they dine out, and they play in Oregon to dodge the sales tax, how does that fundamentally fracture a family's sense of local community?
Wow, that is a really heavy question.
You might be perfectly optimizing your bank account, but at what cost? Are you saving a few $1,000s a year at the expense of actually belonging to the neighborhood where you sleep? If your kids' best friends, your favorite grocery store clerks, your pediatrician, and your professional network are all a stressful bridge crossing away in a completely different state, well, where is your actual home?
That is a phenomenal, gut-wrenching question. Are you genuinely a resident of a community, or have you just engineered yourself into being a resident of a tax bracket? That is the true weight of the decision you have to weigh when you're staring at that glossy real estate brochure and trying to navigate this logistical minefield. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you take these rigorous filters, jobs, school, housing, and taxes, and apply them to your next big family move, wherever that Tuesday afternoon commute takes you.